Kayvman Show, and today's episode is going to pick up where we left off. We've spoken about fats, sugars, nutrition, and the overarching theme of nutrition is that for health, both health and fitness, the best way to be around your nutrition is to actually follow, not all, but a lot of your essentially tastes and preferences, basically to eat what you want. And we're going to expand upon that today, or we're at least going to move that one step forward and talk about, the ideal diet for humans, kind of put it all together a little bit. Just this theme, something that people should really take away from today is you can trust your taste buds, you can trust your inclinations when it comes to nutrition and other things, and we'll speak about that more in the future. But with regard at least to health and fitness, if not everything, you can trust your own taste buds, you can trust your own desires and likes and the things you want to eat. You should listen to that. So when people say listen to your body, that can come across as this sort of new age woo-woo kind of annoying thing that it doesn't really have any substance, but it's true. Like, you do need to listen to your body, and you do need to be smart about that. There does need to be discernment. So some people will say, well, I listen to my body, I eat pizza and pasta all day long, and I'm 50 pounds overweight or whatever it is. Yeah, and most people will say that. So when I say listen to your body and do what listen to the signals of your body and eat what you want, you'll be in great shape, you'll be healthy, you'll be fit, whatever that you want. And they say, no, that's not true. If I was to follow, my natural inclinations and just eat whatever I wanted, I would just eat French fries all day and I would be a whale. And that's how it looks to most people. And I understand how we got there, but again, because of social conditioning, we are taught that we are not to be trusted. We're taught from a young age, to be fair. I mean, I do it to my kids to some degree. No, you can't have that. You got to have this, or you got to finish this before you have that. It's taught to us from a young age that we cannot trust ourselves. We cannot trust our hunger signals, and not just with regard to what we want to eat, but when we want to eat, how much we want to eat. And what I've found is that is a mistake. We can trust our desires, and the more you do, the better you will look. I don't have science behind this, but I'm pretty sure, having worked with hundreds, if not thousands of clients, that the actual chemical, electric, whatever, the signal of pleasure that you get from food actually helps to process that food in a positive way. I'm going to guess, I don't think there's any studies on this, but I've just seen it. The more pleasure actual real pleasure, I don't mean like just mental pleasure, I mean like physical, that sensation of pleasure that you get from food boosts things like insulin sensitivity and nutrient partitioning and, digestive, increases your ability to digest the food and so on and so forth. So, if you're lost as to what I'm talking about, I'm saying that you have to get pleasure from your food. It's a key part of the equation. It's not just a icing on the cake, no pun intended. The pleasure from food is crucial. Just psychologically, it makes sense, because if you're not getting pleasure from your food, eventually you're going to cheat on your diet, you're going to binge, you're going to do something you shouldn't do, right? Or you're going to be like, fuck this, and give it up. So that's kind of, people kind of know that, right? And people pay lip service, even like the nutritionist and dietitian community, like the more scientific bent people will say no, it's important to, occasionally splurge on foods, but that's lame. No, I mean, every single meal should feel like it's your birthday meal. That's what I'm talking about. That's a true diet. That's how we are wired. In nature, we eat what we want, when we want, right? Provided that food is available, we eat what we want, when we want, right? If I were to give you a few rules as a take home from this, not that I'm wrapping up yet, but it would be when you want, make sure you're enjoying it, so make sure there's pleasure, and then stop when you're full. And that's all kind of the same thing, right? When you're no longer getting pleasure from food, when you no longer taste good to you, when you're no longer enjoying it, stop, right? And that's the key equation. When you use pleasure as a North Star, as a guiding principle for your food, what happens is you start to reconnect with those signals that keep you able to be satiated within reason. That keep moderation there. You don't overeat, basically, right? When you start to eat the foods that you truly love, and we've spoken about animal fats, right? Butter, eggs, steak, everyone loves that. I don't care what you say, right? And I'd love to have someone on to speak about how they don't love that stuff and explore that. There may be some truth to it, but probably not. People love butter and meat, whatever. Same thing with sugars. People love honey, right? That's an evolutionary, consistent way for human beings to eat. It's we've always, if we could get our hands on honey, we would eat it. People, the hunter-gatherers, do it today, and they have been doing it for millennia. Fruit, right? Like, we've been doing that since pre-humans, right? Before we were even human. Sugar. We've spoken about this, right? When you start to eat the foods you love and you say, I will eat when I'm hungry, I will eat what I want, what tastes good to me, and I will stop when I'm full, you'll get in shape and stay in shape forever easily. At least on the nutrition. We'll discuss training and lifestyle later. But at least with regard to nutrition, because that's where people are most confused, that is your North Star. That is your guiding principle. And, it's very, very, it's ultimately, I'm breaking it down to be very, very simple. And it is simple. It just might take courage, and it might take awareness. So part of the problem is we're so confused, and we're so not used to hearing that or doing that. We're so not used to following pleasure. Pleasure is a guilty pleasure, but you don't get pure pleasure. That we're not very good at actually ascertaining what truly is pleasure, right? So you might start eating something that tastes good to you and then overeat it because your brain is saying, squirrel this away, eat as much as you can because you're not going to get it again, meaning you're not going to let yourself do this again. So you binge and you overdo it, right? And then you just have this weird dynamic. So it might take some time with this. If you decide that right now, you decide, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to start eating what I want and then just stopping when I'm full. If that's the path that you decide you go down, and I'm encouraging you to take that path as a fitness guy, it might take some time. You probably will mess up a few times because you don't really know what pleasure is, because there's so much mental noise around those primal instincts of pleasure. Like a baby knows it, a child knows it, but by the time you get to maybe, preteen, you've got all these ideas that have been drilled into your head and that you've sort of accepted and now believe that your wires are really crossed, and you'll start that mechanism knowing what to eat when you want to eat. And by the way, that is no small thing. That's millions of years of evolution. Like, to discern what tastes good, how much to eat, when to stop, all of those signals, there's very complex scientific machinery going on underneath the hood of our bodies, that both in the brain and the body, that's really complex stuff that's taken millions of years of evolution. And we think it's really, really dumb because with science and technology, we've been able to confuse that system. For example, with the candy or with seed oils, I'll talk about that later. That's a big one. But seed oils will do that. Seed oils will sort of mimic fat, which is somewhat rare in nature. And so when we get a taste of fat, it's kind of like sugar. It's kind of a shortcut. So pretty much any fat, we're going to love the taste of it. It's not going to feel good. It's not going to satiate us. Our body is not full, but our brain and our sort of taste receptors, if you want to use that as an extension of your nervous system, our taste receptors can get fooled by that. Because seed oils are not very abundant in nature, we've been able to, with machinery, extract oils from, things like corn seed and, canola and grape seed and cotton seed and all this type of stuff, right? Which is basically leftover crap that we weren't using from other products that we were using. And someone was like, well, what are we going to do with this leftover crap? Can we sort of make some more money out of this? And they said, bang, seed oils. If at first they were generally speaking, industrial lubricants for machines, and then somebody figured out, this is obviously going to be the next episode because this is where we're going to go with this one. So I don't want to give too much of this fun little story away, but I believe it was Procter & Gamble in the late 19th or early 20th century figured out that they could use these industrial lubricants, and if you gave them to human beings to eat, they wouldn't die, and that human beings because we like oil, that's kind of a short circuit for our brain, that you could give them to, human beings in place of other fats. I think really it came about when there was some sort of shortage. I'll do a bit more research and do a proper episode on this. There was some sort of shortage with lard and tallow and butter, animal fats, which is what we used to use, right? In the, a century or more ago. That was our common sort of fat, even for things like candles and soap. And so there was a shortage. Maybe it was during the war. I'll do a bit more researching and get that down to you. And Procter & Gamble started using it, I believe, for soaps and candles, and then transferred it to humans. The humans started eating it, and they were like, bang, this is so much cheaper and easier to get than, beef fat and butter and lard and all that type of stuff. We can just get this leftover sort of crap that we're not using squeeze it out with these massive machines that we now have, and we have seed oils, and we can put it in everything. And over the decades and decades, we started to use this extremely cheap fat in place of more expensive but obviously much healthier natural fats. And we didn't know or really care about like nutrition and health. We were like, whatever, we're getting fed, that's enough. Then as the health and nutrition awareness started to become more important, we created a whole industry to basically cover up for the fact that we more or less knew that this was poison. Of course it's bloody poison. Human beings are not meant to be eating cotton seeds, and we created a whole industry, and that is the modern nutrition industry. Nutrition textbooks, nutrition companies. There's a lot of backstory to it, but basically what we evolved is this big lie. We evolved a whole industry of this big lie to cover up for the original lie, so that people could, we felt comfortable continuing to feed our children and feed our, society on things like seed oils, which are unnatural, basically man-made fats in place of natural fats that, again, your tongue can't really tell the difference because it's unnatural, but our bodies do suffer the consequences. So yeah, we've moved on from where we were in terms of following your inclinations, eating what you want and stopping when you're full. And we will come back to more in-depth sort of nutritional guidelines. But then I guess the next step now is I'm going to do a little bit of an expose on seed oils, specifically seed oils, why they're bad for you, a little bit of the history of seed oils, why they're bad for you, and why you should absolutely get rid of that. Because this is a caveat. That's a caveat to this idea that you just eat whatever you want and whatever tastes good. So for example, when I was young, I could easily go through a jar of peanut butter, and not even that long ago, to be honest. And I would always break out and it would give me acne and I always felt like crap, but it tasted good at the time. And so peanut butter was always my comfort food. And it wasn't until I found out really went into the into the nitty gritty on seed oils and omega-6s and so on, and why animal fats are so much better. And the reason I was eating so much peanut butter is because my body wanted fat, but because I was so scared of butter and eggs and meat, right, and saturated fat, because I've been told saturated fat, cholesterol, is going to plug up your heart and you're going to keel over and die, which we know is bullshit. Because I was so scared of that and I was avoiding that, my body still needed, fats. It wanted fats. So when I had peanut butter, which I was told was, the healthy fat, I would absolutely, love it and binge on it. I've binged on peanut butter more times than I can care to say right now. But yeah, my body was trying its best to get the nutrients in, and the reason it wasn't working is because of that mismatch, So we'll talk more about that, seed oils, in the next episode. But key takeaway from today is I encourage you, much as you can, if you can just commit to it, when you want, as much as you want, and stop when it doesn't taste good anymore. That is going to be a pretty guiding principle to your nutrition health, both psychologically and physically. And if it sounds like sort of too woo-woo for you, just trust me, this is coming from relatively hardcore fitness guy, so you have my seal of approval. And we will talk about seed oils in the next episode. Peace.